ask y'all a question. How many of y'all enjoyed week 1 of Why We Crazy? You were here. I'm glad. So I want to start off this way, week 2. So when I was a kid, like this statement was said all the time by everybody, and you may remember it. Here it is. Y'all ready? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And so everybody said that. And honestly, I felt like adults used it as a cop-out not to do anything about cut-downs. But when I think of that statement, I think of my high school coach that coached baseball. He didn't coach me. I was already too fat to play baseball by then. And every time when he called bull crap on something, this is what he said, that's bull piss. That's bull piss. And when I think of this statement, I truly think it is not just baloney that has gone bad. It was never relevant. It was never true. And it's the biggest lie you can ever believe as far as words. Sticks and stones don't do near the damage that not just words do to you, but the lack of words from the people that love you and were supposed to speak in your life and didn't. The absence of words and the presence of destructive words will destroy you and make you crazy. And I want to talk about it today because coming from me, I'm going to go ahead and admit to you, I'm a words person. That's why I'm a pastor. That's why I love this. That's why I could preach every week if it was healthy, but it's not. It's not. I'm a words person. Words matter to me. And I want you guys out there to know that words may not mean as much to you. You may not feel love in words as much as I do. But what I want you to know today is words matter for all of us. They do have a place, even if it's less of a place, and they do just as much damage. Last week, in week 1 of Why We Crazy, I talked about worry. I said you sweat too much is why you're crazy. While we're crazy. You sweat too much. You worry so much that you never win because you fly in fear. You live your life flying by the seat of your pants, scared to death. You live in fear and you make terrible mistakes that you set up for yourself. Worry will cause you to lose. If you want to check that out, you can check it out on our Facebook page. The video's on YouTube probably by now. But this week, I want to talk about the words. I want to talk about the things that were spoken over your life of doubt. The things that weren't spoken that you really needed from the people that you needed it from. I want to talk about it because words will drive you crazy. Words will do some things in your life that will leave you broken. They will leave you broken. And you can let the words that were spoken over you confuse you or drive you crazy and make you miserable for all your life. But today, if you'll let me, I want to offer you another option. I want to stop you in your tracks so that you can head in the right direction. Week 2 of Why We Crazy. I just want you to know why we crazy. For those of you who are new with us, we're doing this series to show you the things that have driven you crazy, that have left you with little confidence and a lot of anxiety, the things that are taking your focus off Jesus and taking your worship away from Him, the things that have set you up. And we want to show you how to build your confidence and your faith back and focus on God, and how to live a life based on who you are, not how you've acted. That's the goal of Why We Crazy. Week 2, I want to talk about the second thing, Why We Crazy. My title today is They Say Too Much. And I got a subtitle this week. I hope y'all got it up there. You listen too much. I usually don't do subtitles. That's probably why I threw them off. They say too much, and you listen too much. And today I really want to hit that. And I want you to share this video. We have gotten lax again. It's like I got to remind you, if you believe in this place and believe in what we're talking about up here, I want you to share this on Facebook. #WhyWeCrazy. For the rest of this series, because somebody needs healing from the wounds that the words that were spoken over their life caused. And it's driving them crazy, and it's taking them off course, and God still has a plan for you and them. So share this video, #WhyWeCrazy, and let's get better together. Welcome online, by the way. We welcome you. We're about to get started. Before I dig into this thing, I want to share with you 2 things that were spoken over me that have affected my life. One of them I've shared with you a lot. The second I've never shared with you. The first one is, and I've overcome this one a lot, but in high school, my guidance counselors, the professionals told me to never even try to graduate college, never even attempt college because I was remedial in certain areas, and they said you would never graduate, so you need to just get a job and be a lay pastor. I told you that. I've told anybody who's new, I just told you for the first time. But the second thing has been something that has been a constant criticism of my entire ministry in my adult life. And it's something that still shakes me to this day. I've been told that my entire ministry, I'm talking about times where I was packing out the church way more than anybody else when I preached. I was told that I could only reach broken people. So all you'll ever do is reach broken people. That's all you do. They say you preach too heavy sermons. You're too intense. You're predictable, Ben. You're going to shock them. All you can do over and over since I was started preaching preaching on Sunday mornings at 19 years of age. I've been told you'll only reach broken people. That's all you can do. What that tells me is I'm not a good leader, and that I can't lead people to a long haul, a long life of health and wholeness. And if that's true, then I need to step off the stage and find something else to do. I can tell you that even crowds that are huge and this place is packed out, it haunts me up here. I can tell you recent Sundays, I've been almost in tears, doubting myself up here, pouring my heart out to you, hearing that lie of what was spoken over me. Got some hate mail. I tell people, you have no idea the battles we fight building a place of acceptance and safety and inclusion. You have no idea. You think it was just laid back. No, you have no idea. You just don't see it because it's mostly Monday through Saturday that we fight those battles. Got some hate mail last year. Number one, it was bashing Brent. And it was from somebody that probably doesn't go here anymore. I don't know who it was. It was an anonymous letter. Number one, they were bashing Brent. If you haven't been here long enough, you'll hear him preach every couple of months. They completely misrepresented the man he is. He got his first taste of what it looks like to pour your heart out and somebody completely go the wrong direction with it. And they ended the letter with, "You're the pastor. Take your platform back like I'm not doing my job when I preached 47. I think last year I preached less than ever. I preached 47 times on Sundays. I do my job. It's not healthy for me to preach. As a matter of fact, we need more people because I need breaks because you need breaks for me." And they left this letter with this. They said, "And all you're doing," he said, he or she, whoever it was, said this. Said, "And all you're doing, you're talking so much. I know we got broken people in our church, but when you have victory in Jesus, Satan can't touch you, and you need to preach on victory more, and you need to quit. Take your platform back and start preaching victory." And all I heard was what's been spoken over me for so many years. Now, I'm about to talk about this message, and I'm going to come back to those two cut downs later as I'm able to package this for you, and then I'm going to show you how I handle it and what I do with it. Because the point I want you to know today is what you do with their words matters. What you do with what they say to you and what you do with the people that held their hearts back that were supposed to love you and neglected you. What you do with their words or lack of words matters. It can drive you crazy, or it can be the very thing that leads you to victory. And I want you to know that what you do with it matters. Words hurt like hell. They may hurt you a little less than they hurt me, but words hurt like hell. When somebody dies that you really never got to hear their heart, that hurts like hell. Words hurt, but they don't have to drive you crazy. They don't have to drive you crazy. And I want to show you what to do and what not to do with them today, if you'll let me. I want to take you to the most told story in the Old Testament. When I tell you what it is, matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and tell you it's David and Goliath. You're going to be like, what's that got to do with words? I'm going to show you. Because I actually changed the scriptures on this one too this week because I was like, I want to go this direction. David and Goliath. I'm going to tell you the start of the story and the end of the story because that's probably the part you know. And we're going to focus on the middle. Because the middle is what's holding you back right now. The middle's what matters. The drama and the dysfunction and what people say to you matter. They're going to keep talking. If you're doing anything with your life, they're going to keep talking, and they're going to continue to say too much. And you get the choice. Are you going to listen? And if you listen, what you're going to do? What are you going to do with what you listen to? Your life, you may have had a rough start, but you're never going to finish strong until you focus and handle the middle better. And they're going to keep talking. And people are going to keep neglecting you. And you will never face a season in you. You're not going to get out of this world without somebody overlooking you. I hate it if it's your parents. I hate it if it's your husband or wife, but it's going to happen. And your life, you're never going to get to beat the giant that David. You're never even going to face Goliath if you don't start handling the middle better. Your victory, you're one, like you started. So we're going to talk about the middle. Look at your neighbor and say, the middle matters. I know y'all were sleepy. I know it's raining. I know you got to talk to me a little bit. The middle matters. Look at your other neighbor and say, I got to make the most of the middle. I'm going to show you what David dealt with that is the reason he even got to square up versus Goliath. Square up against Goliath. And you're never even going to reach your potential until you learn how to handle the middle. Here's how the story starts. Well, let me tell you how the story starts. David isn't even there. He didn't even invited. Some of you are like, my boss doesn't, but nobody sees my giftings. Nobody sees what I can do. Listen, David wasn't even invited to the war that he won for his nation. That's the first good news. So we know in the chapter before that David's daddy, Jesse, did not even notice him. It's pretty obvious that he was neglected because Samuel, the priest, God tells him to go to the home, and he tells Jesse, one of your sons is going to be the next king, and I want you to bring your kids in here and let me look at them and talk to them. And Jesse doesn't even go get David. He leaves him in the field. How many daddies in there, if somebody said, your son's going to be great, would you leave a son out if they wanted to choose from your sons? Yeah, that's what happened. So David, all his brothers are fighting this war. They're at a standstill. The Philistines versus Israel. They're at a standstill. There's a valley, and they're on two hills, and they're deadlocked. And they got to decide what to do. And this giant that in history we see is about 9 feet tall. Like his dadgum breastplate weighed like 125 pounds. And he's talking. He's talking. He's standing out and he's giving them an out because Israel's outmanned. And Goliath says, hey, if one of y'all will man up and fight me, if you kill me, we will be your slaves. If I kill you, you will be our slaves. Let's solve this war one-on-one. And for, I believe the Bible says 44 days, Israel was in the hills, terrified, tuck and tail. Nobody wanted to face him. And David's daddy, Jesse, sends David with some sandwiches and some supplies to check on his brother. Have you ever been left on the bench and not picked, young folks? The next king was that way too. And so his daddy sends him on. David, just go check on your brothers. Go see how the war's going. You're not invited to it, but I want you to see it. You get to celebrate with it. You know, some of you are like, I always have to celebrate everybody else. David does like a good son. He takes the supplies and he shows up, and for over a month they've been terrified. And this giant, day after day, the Bible says, bring it! And we'll solve this right now. He's cursing God, the Bible says, like he's making fun of their God. And David, we know, is about a young teenager. He's probably not just overlooked and they're jealous of him. He's also young. He's the baby brother. And he shows up and he hears this giant hollering. And he starts saying, wait a second. How long has this been going on? Because he can't talk like that. Like, I'll fight him if none of y'all will. He wasn't that blatant and that firm, but he was like, I will take him on. I will fight him. We can't let him shake our confidence. Number one, Goliath was talking. There's some giants in your life, addiction or drama or dysfunction in your family, some mistakes they're talking. Your giants will always be talking to you. Your insecurities, I will always have to deal with what people have told me are my weaknesses. But I get to choose what I do with them. Your giants are always going to be talking. But now we're about to pick up his brothers start talking. His older brothers start talking and telling everybody what he's really about and not about. And I want to show you what they said. So he's saying, hey, you can't talk like this. You can't keep doing this. I'll fight him. Let me fight him. I'll take him down. 1 Samuel 17, verse 28. But when David's older brother Eliab, you want me to tell you about Eliab? When Samuel wanted to see who the next king was, Jesse, David's dad, sent Eliab in first because he was a man of great stature. He was a beast. And that's the scripture that we all like to quote when God speaks to Samuel and says, no, he's not the one. God judges by the heart. The world judges by the outer appearance. Eliab is this big beast warrior stepping up to his little brother who's been, and by the way, this big beast has been hiding in the hills for 44 days. But when David's older brother Eliab, I'm telling y'all, this is going to change your life because this is so comparable to what we deal with. But when David's oldest brother Eliab heard David talking to the men, he was angry. He was angry for a reason. What are you doing around here anyway, he demanded. What about those sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? Cutting him down like you're just a shepherd, brother. You leave the warrior to the fighting to the big boys. I know about your pride and deceit, David. You just want to see the battle. You're just there for the show. You're just there for the show. You're just here to see what's going on. You ain't nothing, David. And we're going to see this wasn't the first time this had happened. I'm going to show you in a minute. I know about you just here for the show. What have I done now, David replied. Notice that. We're going to go here at that in a minute. What have I done now? In other words, here we go again. Dealt with this his whole life. A daddy that didn't notice him and the brothers that spoke down to him. David replied, I was only asking a question. He walked over to some of the others and asked them the same thing and received the same answer. Then David's question was reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him. I want to really focus on this. So David is in the middle of something that he wants victory. He wants to help. He wants what God has for him. He's stepping into his future, and they're still there talking. And it's not just the people that we're talking right now. They have been the people that have been talking his whole life. Some of you were dealing with talk from 20 years ago. So was he right here. And I want you to see something. A lot of us think that people are rejecting us. About a huge portion, I'd say most of the things that you take are rejection or not rejection. I'm going to show you. His brothers were talking all that crap. You're just here for the show, telling all the guys, you're just here because you want to see it, but you're scared. But his brothers were angry because they were ashamed and insecure because they've been spending 44 days hiding, and their little baby brother shows up and says, I'll sacrifice everything to fight this joker. And so what they begin to do is not reject him. They were projecting on him. I want you to see this. Most people who are miserable, most people who don't believe in themselves, most people who have no confidence and they're living in whatever somebody said to them to wound them. The reason misery loves company is because a person, if they can make you believe about yourself the way they believe about them, they can be content and settled in their own misery. The reason misery loves company is because they can look in the mirror a little better and cope with their misery if they can make you feel the same way. Your mama and daddy who cut you down, it's probably they saw your potential. Because at this point, these brothers weren't just picking on David. They saw his potential and they did not like it. because they were ashamed and insecure of the fact that David showed up and said, man, I'm all in because God is bigger and I'll fight him if I have to. I'll take him. And their brothers had been they were insecure and they were ashamed. The people, most of the people who reject you really don't reject you. They're rejecting themselves. And what they want to do is make you feel as bad as they do so they can cope with them feeling bad about themselves. I'm telling you, if you'll really process through the people who have wounded you, neglected you, cut you down, you will see if a person is hurting bad enough to hurt you, they hate themselves and they want to make you hate them. The parent or the spouse who doesn't pour into you and neglects you, let me tell you something, they don't like themselves. Because if they like themselves, they would actually be a whole person that wants to be whole with you and do life with you. They can't give you what they don't have, but they can try to bring you to the level that they are. And they win when you retaliate on social media. They know they got you. You're like, well, how is it if I defend myself how do they know that I'm miserable? When you start retaliating about the drama that you're dealing with at work on Facebook, they got you. They got you doubting yourself. If you start cutting down your ex, he's got you. If they hear you're gossiping about them, defending yourself to the people they're talking to, they got you. They win. They win because they drove you crazy, making you feel about yourself the way they feel about themselves. I'm telling you, most of the things that were spoken over you were actually believed by the person that told it to you. Projection is mostly what we deal with in life, not rejection. And if you can start realizing that when somebody projects on you, they see your potential and they want to squelch it because they don't have the courage to step up in their own lives. You hear me on that? Yeah. I know it's intense right now. I know it's intense. Listen to me. Now I want to shift here. How David handled this. I know I'm teaching a lot today. I usually don't do this much scripture, but it's important. So, how David handled this is the reason he got to face Goliath. I want to show you how we'd handle it in 2020. Y'all ready for this? I'm going to give like 3 things that all of us fit some mold if we haven't handled the middle right. Number 1 is some of you just wouldn't address it. We're going to say David didn't just ignore it, but some of you wouldn't address it. You run from conflict. I'm not going to complain about it because that's worse. That's your fear. You don't address it, which is why you build up resentment and you end up blowing up on somebody that didn't do. You blow up on somebody about what 20 people did to you. You don't address it. So what happens is when you flip out on your spouse, they're shocked because they didn't know you were ever upset for the last 5 years. They're shocked that you're walking out the door. You thought they were going to take the initiative to read your mind? You're pissed at your kids? You didn't tell them because you haven't addressed it. And 100 things become 1,000 things, become 10,000 things, and eventually you're human. It's going to blow up. And you're going to push people away and those people, you're never going to get to meet your potential and face Goliath because you don't even address, you just walk away until you're not mad about it anymore. Just walk away, I'll come back to it and act like it never happened. No, because it did happen and you're dealing with it. And you've got to address it. You got to talk to the people. You can wait until you calm down, but come back to it. Come back to it. Because you don't ever get to face Goliath, let alone defeat Goliath, if you're not addressing the things that you're dealing with in your life. I just want y'all to know I'm glad y'all were coughing and sniffling because I'm glad you're still here. So it does not bother me. I'm just glad you're here. Second person. Y'all ready for this? The second person is the person that prematurely attacks. You prematurely attack and you make a fool of yourself before you even get to face Goliath. David addressed this, but he couldn't fight. He couldn't fight Eliab man to man. He killed Goliath by a slingshot. He wasn't going to go man to man on Goliath, y'all. The second of you, your talent and your intellect is not your problem. Your talent and your intellect is not your problem. Your temper is your problem. Your temper is your problem. Somebody said something to you, a lot of people, words wounded you, the lack of words and affirmation wounded you, and you get so insecure, and the way you live in your insecurities is when you perceive that somebody is attacking you, or somebody is overlooking you, or there's some type of injustice, you immediately attack. And you make a fool out of yourself before you even get to the championship. Let me give you an example. What if David would have just manned up and told Eliab, hey, you've been hiding in the hills for 44 days. What you talking about, big boy? And then number one, he got beat down because he wasn't a man-to-man combat guy. He was a slinger. He would have got beat down. And that's what we do. Your talent and your intellect is not the problem. The reason you have never got to the pinnacle of the person that you can be, the reason you've never made it in athletics like you could have, is because you flip out before you get to face Goliath. And when you flip out and make a fool of yourself, you're never going to get to face Goliath. You have an incredible business mind. You have a bad temper. And your insecurities and the wounds that people spoke over you, you flip out before you even get to the show. You flip out before you even get there. Third person. You're the person that you get to face Goliath. You kill it. You kill Goliath. We're told that when David kills Goliath with a slingshot. He takes Goliath's sword. He cuts his head off, lifts it up. I killed him. And whatever your story looks like, you prove everybody wrong. Man, you're successful. You make them dollar bills. You look successful you may be an overachieving church person. I never did this. And everybody looks at you when you're on a platform. What a godly person they are. But you know what you are? You're the person that you kill Goliath. You lift the head up, but you don't do it for God's glory. You do it to prove a point. And you can be successful all day. And everybody can celebrate how much money you make. And everybody can look up to you. But if you're doing it for your glory and to prove a point, you're still living in your insecurities, and you're going to sacrifice significance for success. And a lot more in the process. Those are the three ways we handle our brothers. That's three ways that we handle people, What's the point in winning if you don't win the right way? What's the point in winning if you don't win the right way? I don't know. Ask the Houston Astros. What's the point in getting to the top the wrong way and for the wrong reasons? Because I promise you'll never be happy and satisfied doing it that way. You'll never be happy and satisfied doing it that way. Now, David handles his brothers the right way. He handles his brothers the right way. And then he gets to King Saul. King Saul's like, who's this little joker that wants to fight that I hear about? He goes to the king. King Saul doesn't believe in him. Here's the conversation. Verse 32. Don't worry about this Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go fight him. Don't be ridiculous, Saul replied. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, David. He's been a man of war since his youth. But David persisted. I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said. When a lion or bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I've done this with both lions and bears, and I'll do it with this pagan Philistine too. For he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. Saul finally consented and said, go ahead. The Lord be with you. Saul, you're a boy. You don't have the qualifications. And David basically says, you don't get to say that to me. You don't get to say that to me. I may not have experience on the battlefield, but I got experience in battle, and I don't get a soldier to fight beside me. I'm all by myself with the line. He says, you do not get to predict my potential and my promise. No, sir, King Saul. I respect you, but I want to kill this giant, and if you'll let me, God will grant me victory. Nobody took David seriously. Nobody took David seriously. David did what he needed to do with what they said. He didn't let it drive him crazy. He said, let me fight the giant. Let me fight the giant. And David said, sure. And what I want you to know is if you'll keep working and staying faithful, here's the thing you don't know about King Saul. King Saul would eventually see what this little boy was working with. And he would spend years trying to kill him because he realized later on God chose this kid to take my throne. Because I wasn't doing what's right. And I tried to do what was wrong. And God said, David, I got you. You keep doing what you're doing and focus on what you're supposed to focus on and quit worrying about what they think about you. Nobody at your job may take you seriously. That's okay. Keep working and eventually Saul's going to call for you. And he may not take you seriously at first when your boss calls and says, hey, you want to interview for this job? But they'll keep calling and you'll keep doing things the right way. You'll keep focusing on you and you're eventually going to pull out of where you are and God will honor you. But you got to quit letting their words drive you crazy. You got to stop. You got to do something different with their words. And I want to bring this home and tie this up, this part. There's two things that other people's words do to us. They either define us or they drive us. Both are bad. Most of you, you've let them define you. Let me tell you that. You've let somebody who cut you down, you let people who downplay you, overlook you, you've let people who left you and told you that you weren't good enough, you've let them leave you and you've let them define you. And by that I mean you're still trying to wrap your head around what your mommy and daddy did to you 25 years ago. They win when you do that. You let it define. Why are you trying to make sense out of a person who doesn't even make sense to themselves? Because if they are hurting bad enough to try to confuse you, especially when you were a kid, they don't make sense to themselves. And you can keep going back and replaying it in your head that they weren't there for you or they abused you. You can go back to your spouse that cheated on you or your kids that don't like you. You can keep going back and replaying it, but it'll never make sense. And that's the trick of letting people who hurt you define you. You can let it define you and make you doubt yourself all day. But you've got to come to the place that people like that don't make sense. None of us make sense to ourselves completely. And you can try to understand something that's not meant for you to understand and let them define you and cause you to doubt yourself and live crazy. The second thing is we let it drive us. Kind of like the third person who, man, you just push against the wall. You're going to get to the top. You're going to do it. If you let your haters drive you, that is just the same as bitterness. It is bitterness. It just looks different. And I promise you, no matter how successful you are, it will never satisfy you. Because when you're successful, when you push so hard because of your insecurities, that's not a good foundation. You may raise good kids, you may make a good income, but one day you're going to come to the place that I did all this because somebody drove me. Don't let it drive you. Catalyst, I don't know what they told you. I don't know what confused you. You may not even remember what caused you to believe the way you believe about yourself and the way you treat other people. I don't know what they told you, but I want to tell you something. Your worth isn't in fixing your spouse. You're trying to prove that if you can make them happy, then you're worth it. You're already worth it. And you're going to drive yourself crazy because somebody confused you or overlooked you or didn't speak into your life and show you how worth it you are. And you're going to try to fix your spouse and prove to yourself that you're somebody. You're somebody. And I don't know who told you any different, but I'm here to tell you you're somebody. And the reason you've lived like nobody is because you believe you're nobody, but you're somebody. Young man, middle-aged man, older man, you're a good man. You're a good man, and I don't know who told you any different. You got some flaws, you got some quirks, you got some craziness about you, but you're a good man. And when you decide to believe that you're a good man, you'll start living like one. You don't have to live like what you've acted like. You don't have to live like what you believe you are. When you start believing that you're a good man, your life will begin to line up. When you start realizing that you're loved by Jesus, and when you focus on Him, you're going to start living like it. You're going to be a better daddy. You're going to be a better husband. Quit listening to what they told you weren't and start being what you are. You're a good woman. You made some mistakes in your last marriage. You're disappointed in yourself. Even if you know they did some things wrong, you're looking in the mirror. And I want you to know you're a good woman. But you're never going to make anybody else happy until you're happy with yourself. And you're never going to be happy with yourself until you look in the mirror and you say, I've made some mistakes, but I'm a good woman. When you look in the mirror and say, I got some things that I can't offer you, but I got some things that I'll give my whole heart and life to you. And first, you got to do that for you. I don't know what they told you. You're a good woman. I don't know why you put up, young ladies and anybody, I don't know why you put up with your toxic boyfriend. I don't know who told you that your loyalty is built on putting up with your toxic boyfriend. If that boyfriend does not speak to how valuable you truly are, I got news for you. Those boots are made for walking, and you will do better strutting single than settling for somebody because somebody else told you a lie. Keep walking and handle the middle better. You're in the mess you are. You made it in the middle, and you're going to live it to the end if you don't start handling the middle. David said, brothers, what have I done now? It was constant. His daddy didn't notice him. His brothers were jealous of him. They overlooked him and were jealous of him because they saw his potential. And the reason he lived to the level of his potential, even though he made some boneheads and mistakes, he never took other people's opinion too seriously. He did some stupid things, but handling what other people said was not one of them, or the wrong way was not one of them. And you don't have to be. Listen to me. You can keep pushing people away and living your life in cynicism and negativity. You can talk about the world sucks, everybody sucks in it. Listen, you can keep doing that all day. Some of you grew up in a church that did that, and I'm sorry. And I'm telling you, Catalyst will never be that. The world's coming to an end. Satan is the world is a terrible place. Listen, the world sucks. No, maybe your perspective sucks. And if you keep pushing people away and blaming people for the people that hurt you, you're never going to be happy. It's not fair to keep pushing people away for the hurt you experience because you're never going to be happy because you're letting their words drive you crazy. You're letting what they did to you drive you crazy. And you wonder why you have no confidence. Listen to me. You can keep treating every man like the man that hurt you treated you. And I promise you, you will never have a good man because a good man won't stand and stay around for that. You can hate women and you can keep treating women the way that woman treated you who hurt you, and you can project your hatred on them or your hatred on her on them, and I promise you're going to be miserable. Nobody's going to like to be around you, and they have good reason because you were taking out on good people what broken people did to you and said to you, and I promise you're never going to face Goliath, let alone kill him. Until you start seeing the world a little differently. What you do matters. Quit treating people who God's trying to bring in your life like the people who left you and hurt you. Or you're going to die alone. You're going to live alone. Or you're never going to see the true relationships that God has for you. Now, I want to come back to the cut downs with me, because here's the reason words hurt so much. Is because deep down you're terrified that they're true. Think of your biggest insecurity, and if you can remember where it came from. It was probably something that was either said over you or you interpreted it based on what somebody said or did or didn't do for you. The reason your insecurities are so strong is because you're terrified they're true. And if they're true, then your biggest fear as a human is true, that you're not enough. I told you you're not lazy, you're not sucky, but you live life in fear of not being good enough. And when you live your life not believing you're good enough, you'll never truly be what God has called you to be. And you are enough. And when they spoke that over me in high school, that never go to college. Never go to college, just start out as a lay minister and just work a job and all that stuff. You know, I didn't like it, and honestly, for years it drove me. And I got 3 degrees. I got a bachelor's and 2 masters. I wasn't going to let them. I spent 9.5 years in seminary. I'm over $90,000 in student loans because of it. I proved my point and realized there was no point to prove. I let them tell me that my scholastic intelligence was less. Got 3 degrees and realized, man, my social intelligence is better than most people's scholastic intelligence. I'm good with people, and you don't have to do math to be good with people. You have to love people and like people and not give up hope in people. I'm a pastor. I'm not a rocket scientist. I don't even like to tell people about my degrees. I don't like it when you tell me, where'd you get your degrees? I'd rather just talk, just bump that, man. And listen to me, all my slow learners out there, all my people that your insecurities, you feel like you're stupid and ugly and you walk around with your head down because of what somebody said to you or the neglect that you experienced. I want you to know this. I want you to know this. The world needs less professors and less people that can act like they got it together more. They need more youth. The world needs more people who are comfortable in their own skin and don't focus on what they're not good at and what everybody says they can't do. They focus on what God's called them to do. Second thing, the lie that it caused me to believe that I still struggle with to this day is that I can only reach broken people. Because you know what that tells me? The lie that I interpret it is if I can only reach broken people, then maybe I'm still completely broken. I can honestly tell you last Sunday, Connor, my own son, had to pray for me because I was living in that. Because the week had drained me, and I dealt with some criticism from some higher-ups in this community that have nothing to do with Catalyst, and it just took me back there. You can only reach broken people. But if I step back and I'm truly honest with myself, if I step back and start truly be honest with myself, everybody's got some broken areas in their life. You can be successful and your bank account can be big, and you can be as broken as your bank account is big. And my hardest job is to reach the people who think they got their crap together. And that's not just my hardest job. That's every pastor who steps on the platform in America's hardest job. And I'm growing. And I'm growing. And just because I got some things I need to work on, whether they're what they say or not, here's the truth. Satan likes to look in the Bible, how he'll take a little bit of truth and twist it into a lie so that it plays into your insecurities. That's how people work. They know you just enough to take a little kernel of weakness in your life and to sow it into your life, and it's a lie. Even those are just because there's a kernel of truth doesn't make the cut down true. Just because your friend that told you what you can't do knows a little bit about you doesn't mean there may be a little bit of truth, but it doesn't make what they said the truth. Here's the deal. If I do this thing right, if we do this thing right, I don't suck. I have areas to grow. But the best Ben Bonner, you haven't seen yet. And the best you haven't seen yet. Look at your neighbor and say, the best me is the yet me. Look at your other neighbor and say it like you believe it. The best me is the yet me. Just because what they say has some truth doesn't mean you suck. It means you're unfinished. And it's a good thing, because if you're living and breathing and you're finished, then man, you've topped out. That's real hopeless. And I don't care if 20 people said it to you, 2 people. Some of you are like, well, like 200 people speak the same thing over me my whole life. Listen, a lot of people have done that to me. But here's the deal. I don't care if 20 people said the same thing to you. I don't care if 200 people said the same thing to you. I don't care if everybody says it, because the Bible says if God be true, let every man be a liar. The Bible says that if God be for you, who in the world could be against you? So you need to start focusing on the God that is for you and not give a flip about what everybody. You need to quit flipping out over people. The Bible says that nothing can separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Nothing can separate you from that love. Listening to people who were trying to. Stop it. I want to finish on this. Words can drive you crazy. Words can drive you crazy, and what you do with them matters. And here's the deal. Quit listening to people who haven't built anything with their life. Here's the thing, the reason I shared the broken thing today is I started thinking about it. The people, every person who ever spoke over my life, that you can only reach broken people. Catalyst is already bigger than all their churches has ever been. Why am I going to listen to a cut down from somebody that you haven't even built anything as big as what Catalyst is? Maybe you need to take some of your criticism, bro. My point is, you can let it drive you crazy. What you do with it matters. And if you don't do the right thing with people's words, you're not just going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to hurt the people you love the same way you were hurt. What you do with their words matters. You get to choose what you listen to. You get to choose what you do with what you listen to. But I want you to know that you are loved. And you are a giant killer. When you start handling what's in front of you, you're going to see it. I love you.
You get to choose what you listen to. But here's the thing. This may just be me, so y'all don't have to agree. It may just only be me. But y'all know who the person who gives me the most crap is? The person who gives me the most criticism? The person who makes my life the hardest? The person who questions me the more than anybody else? Y'all know, it may be the same for y'all. It's me. I'm telling you, what I say to myself, boy, I never say that to anybody else. It could be the worst person you've ever met. And the things I've thought, the things I've said that I couldn't do or that I shouldn't do or that I haven't done, I wouldn't say that to anybody else. So looking back at this story, with David, he had all these voices around him. Let me ask you this. David was a shepherd. They were on the side of mountains with these sheep and these goats. Think David ever lost a goat or a sheep? I mean, look, he was a man after God's own heart, but the man wasn't perfect. I mean, he lost some sheep when he got older. Y'all remember that story about Bathsheba we've talked about? He saw a woman bathing naked on the roof. You gotta watch out for them women bathing naked on the roof. That'll get you every time. Get you every time. If they're doing that, they're looking for somebody to get them. Anyway, so, I mean, David wasn't perfect. So what are the chances? I mean, at one point, if this dude's fighting off lions and tigers and bears, oh my, there's somebody. Somebody better believe there's a chance one of them sheep got eaten. Right? And it was bad. Sorry. Pretend I didn't say that. But when it was time for the battle, when everybody around him was saying, "Man, David, you can't even wear Saul's armor. You're like a 12-year-old kid. What are you gonna do here?" See, David could have done what we do and said, "Man, there are some sheep. I've lost sheep. there was a couple times I heard something and I went running. When by the time I got there, it was too late. There's lamb chops everywhere. I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not sorry. All right, that was a lie. No, but look, David could have said, "No, I didn't get it. I'm not that good at this. I ain't got them all." No, but see what happened is David was speaking to the victories, right? David wasn't speaking. David was speaking from the victories. He didn't look at Goliath and say, "Oh man, this man reminds me of that one bear I didn't take down." What he did was said, "Hey, I've been here, buddy. I've done this. Here's what this is the same thing that Ben just read. I have done this to both lions and bears. I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too." He looks at it doesn't matter all the bad things. David knows where he didn't measure up. Man, David knows he isn't as good as he needs to be, but he said, "Hey, I've done it before. I've seen this victory happen." And at first glance, you're like, "Whoa, what a cocky little turd." There's 13 years old, be like, "Oh, I've done this to bears. I'll do it to this big old man too." But no, see, here's what David said next. He says, "The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from the Philistine." See, David knew when he was fighting those bears, he knew what was on his side, right? And he knew that God was going to do it again. And that's why he spoke the way he spoke. When David woke up and he was like, "Man, I am not a good guy today," he's like, no, God, you say I am good. You say I can walk in that. When you wake up and you're thinking, "Oh, today is not my day to be a dad. I'm going to kill somebody." No. You were called to raise these kids. God has got a blessing on your life to raise these kids. That day you wake up and you're like, "Man, I am a failure. I have not done anything right." God's saying, "I called you to be a conqueror." The day you wake up in the morning and you're like, "Oh man, I'm a wimp." God says, "No, you're a warrior." When you look at your life and you're like, "Man, this thing's going nowhere," God is saying, "I've got your victory waiting. If I have to, I'll carry you to it." That's where David was speaking from. David wasn't speaking from, "Oh man, back in 1973 when I could have made something of my life, I took a wrong turn." No. David said, "Hey, man, there's some bad stuff too, but that ain't what I'm speaking to this situation. It's time to speak the good stuff, because what you hear matters, and you can't change what you hear if it's in your head if you ain't changing what you're thinking." You know what I'm saying? Y'all stand with me. Y'all want to see a victory? All right, I guess not. Do y'all want to see a victory in your life? If you want to see a victory, you got to speak a victory. You can't be dwelling on the things that you've fallen short. You can't be dwelling on all that stuff. You got to be dwelling on your victories, what God's doing through you, what God's doing in you, what God's doing with you. Y'all say this. Say, look at the person next to you. Say, what they say is on them. Look at the other person and say, but what I do with it is on me. What they say is on them, but what I do is on me. Say, I matter. Say it like you matter. I matter. We'll see y'all next week for the next part of Why We Crazy.